Now we are talking about the transition. President-elect Trump vowing to follow through on promises made on the campaign trail, and with a newly expanded coalition sending him back to a White House, that means a wider range of issues that he'll have to address to keep voters happy. Joining me now to discuss the new administration's priorities, we have Trump campaign surrogate Alfonso Aguilar, RNC Youth Advisor Council Chair Brylan Hollihan, and Republican strategist Tricia McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for being with us this morning. Alfonso, let's start with you. The president-elect really expanded his support with Latino voters. How did he do it, and how does he keep this momentum on his side?
Well, I think he did it by talking about the issues that Hispanic voters care about, high prices and immigration. Hispanics are really concerned about that prices remain extremely high since this administration began. Prices have gone up by over 22%, and that's really hurting Hispanic working families. And then immigration, the border crisis, which is affecting their communities, creating insecurity, leading to crime. They didn't want to be pandered to, and that's exactly what Democrats did, and they showed their resiliency, their independence, and like every poll showed on both issues, they thought Trump could do a better job. So the way to keep that support is by ensuring to put in place policies that will reduce prices, that will bring manufacturing back and create better paying jobs. And on the border, and that can be done on day first, shutting down the border, dissuading people from making that very dangerous trip to the southern border, and then beginning the removal of migrants, especially those involved in criminal activity.
And Alfonso, that's exactly what I want to ask you about, because many people would say that Donald Trump took a very hard line when it came to his rhetoric on immigration, specifically talking about mass deportations, and specifically on his rhetoric. But he still broke through with Latino voters. What do you say to that? How did he do it?
Right. Well, it's fascinating. Well, he did it because this administration unleashed a massive migration wave, unprecedented, a massive, unregulated migration wave. And Hispanics saw what that meant for them in their communities in terms of their security, in terms of economic opportunities. The migrants arriving at their cities are taking resources away. So the Democrats have always used immigration as a wedge issue to say Republicans are anti-Hispanic, anti-immigrant. But the issue really, Trump was able to turn the tables on the Democrats on this issue. So as I was referring to polling, the majority believed that Trump could do a better job, and the majority now support deportation. So an issue that worked for Democrats in the past now is working for Republicans.
And to that point, Brylan, I want to bring you in now. Trump drew support, strong support from young men in this election, but not even young men, which is a demographic that we've heard a lot about in this last couple weeks, but young people in general. And the campaign was targeting young men with some podcasts, leveraging what some would say some masculinity. There was even talk about, like, too much bromance. But it was not just with young men. It was with young people. How did he do it? Right. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a simple reason that President Trump saw this double-digit gains with youth vote across the board, Tuesday night. My peers and I got out and voted for him for, in historic numbers, because we want 4 more years of promises made, promises kept. We want no new wars that we'd be drafted to serve on the front lines in. We want a safe and secure country to raise families in, and that starts at the southern border. We want lower inflation to be able to buy our first home and even just go out and get groceries. And we're even looking forward to some of these Trump policies implementing things like tax cut proposals with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. President Trump won this election, to your point, because of Gen Z. And I think when inaugurated, he will be a president for Gen Z.
And Tricia, I want to bring you in because women were in many ways central to this election when it came to issues surrounding, reproductive access and reproductive rights. President-elect Trump did well with women. How did he do that? What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think what both of these gentlemen spoke to is the fact that there's been a realignment with the Republican Party and a realignment with the country. The 2016 Trump turned the party into really a working class, more white coalition. But now we're seeing it is a multi-ethnic, multiracial, working class populist movement. And I think that, of course, that includes women, that includes Black Americans, Hispanics, across the gambit. But I think part of the reason Trump did so well with women is, of course, the economy. Women have the majority of purchasing power in a U.S. household. They are so impacted by inflation. The fact that costs are up 20%, that impacts them at the grocery store. And I think Donald Trump was able to speak to that issue far better, and he was able to speak to policy solutions where Kamala Harris really did, for the most part, run on vibes and what she called a joy campaign. I think that joy ran out pretty quickly when people realized she wasn't giving them tangible solutions to the problems that they were facing.
And so, Tricia, as a strategist, then, when you're looking at this and you're, you see the broad coalition of Americans who voted for Donald Trump, but when I look at you guys as guests over here, you guys all look very similar, and it is different from me. That is a messaging that typically Democrats had done well with, at least appealing to a diverse base, and still overwhelmingly Black Americans, specifically Black women, did go for Democrats. So how do you connect with some of those voters who did still vote for Kamala Harris, and how does the Republican Party now reflect the Americans who voted for this president? Tricia, I'll start with you.
Sure. Well, to be fair to Alfonso, I believe he has different shades of melanin than maybe Brylan and I do. But I mean, look, men, 20% of Black men went for Donald Trump. 15% of Black voters in general went for Donald Trump. I think, Donald Trump in his victory speech talked about unity, and I think that doesn't matter this color of your skin. I think we all face very similar problems, and I think he is going to, and I think all of us here are optimistic that he's going to govern in a unifying way. I think Republicans, we still need to make, continue to make strides with especially Black women, continue with the Hispanic population. Trump won about 40% of the Native American population. Trump won 68%. So I think that by continuing to speak about the issues, we're going to have success.
And Brylan, I want to bring you back in now, because how much does speaking to the issues mean cutting down on the rhetoric? Because there was still an overwhelming, some 70% of Americans who indicated that the country is moving in the wrong direction. And a lot of that has to do with the political rhetoric. So how does specifically President-elect Trump, who likes to do the weave, as he calls it, and has typically had what many considered inflammatory rhetoric, how does he calm down on that and connect with these voters by focusing on the issues?
Well, I think he sits down and continues to have conversations with my generation. That's how he won the youth vote on Tuesday night. One of my recommendations to the president's team during the campaign was to embrace modern forms of media. Trump sitting down for 3-hour policy discussions on Gen Z's favorite podcast, getting hundreds of millions of views, is one of the reasons I think he won so big. Tuesday night is going to be continuing, throughout the White House. Now that he's in the White House, I don't think he should just stop this. I've recommended to him directly and his team this week that he should host a monthly podcast from the White House, breaking through the legacy media, sharing his message directly to Gen Z, having this unity conversation like a modern day fireside chat with FDR. This is something that I think we could continue to do to not only win youth votes in 26 and 28, but to have this be a generational change for our party and for our nation.
Brylan, that could be a good idea. That sounds like a great idea. Brylan Hollihan, Alfonso Aguilar, and Tricia McLaughlin, thank you guys for coming on and talking this through. We appreciate it.